I caught my brother in bed with my fiancée 3 months before our wedding. The image of them tangled in sheets that I had bought in the apartment I was paying for burned itself into my memory forever. What came after was somehow worse. My family, the people I thought would stand by me, tried to convince me to forgive them both because family should always come first. They wanted me to pretend it never happened to move on for the sake of keeping everyone comfortable. But their final reaction to my decision left every single one of them stunned. Before I get into what happened, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If you have ever dealt with family betrayal or had to make an impossible choice between your own dignity and keeping the peace, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story takes turns nobody expected. Let me start from the beginning so you understand exactly how everything unraveled. Growing up, Lucas and I were only 2 years apart, but we might as well have lived in different universes. I was the older brother, the responsible one, the kid who got decent grades and never caused problems. Lucas was the baby of the family, and from the moment he was born, he could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. When he forgot to do his homework, it was because he was creative, and school did not challenge him enough. When he wrecked Dad's car at 17, it was just an accident that could happen to anyone. When he dropped out of college after one semester, our parents said he was finding himself. I learned early on that pointing out the favoritism only made me look bitter and jealous. So I stopped trying. I went to State University, graduated with a degree in civil engineering, and landed a solid job at a construction firm in Seattle. I moved into my own apartment, paid my own bills, and built a life that had nothing to do with being the responsible son who always came second. Lucas bounced around between jobs and living situations. Sometimes he stayed with our parents in Portland. Sometimes he crashed with friends. He tried being a bartender, then a personal trainer, then got really into photography for about 6 months. Our parents funded every new venture, convinced that eventually he would find his passion. I watched from a distance, visiting for holidays and major birthdays, but keeping my life separate from the chaos that seemed to follow Lucas everywhere. Then I met Natalie. It was at a company mixer where her marketing firm was pitching ideas to my construction company. She walked into the conference room wearing a navy blue dress and carrying a confidence that filled the entire space. Her presentation about brand positioning was sharp and compelling, but what caught my attention was how she handled a difficult question from my boss. She did not get defensive or flustered. She smiled, acknowledged his concern, and pivoted to address it directly. After the meeting, I found an excuse to talk to her. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant near Pike Place Market. We talked for 4 hours straight, covering everything from our careers to our families, to our completely opposite opinions on whether pineapple belonged on pizza. She made me laugh harder than I had in years. When I walked her to her car, she kissed me on the cheek and said she had a great time. I floated home that night. Over the next year, Natalie became the best part of my life. She was ambitious and driven at work, but could completely relax on weekends. We would spend Saturdays hiking trails around Mount Rainier or trying new restaurants in the city. She got along with my coworkers when I brought her to company events. She even made an effort with my family, though I could tell she found my parents' dynamic with Lucas a bit strange. After 18 months together, I proposed. We were on a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands, standing on a beach at sunset. I had been nervous all day, carrying the ring in my pocket and waiting for the perfect moment. When I finally got down on one knee and asked her to marry me, she did not hesitate. She said yes immediately, tears streaming down her face as she pulled me up to kiss her. The engagement period should have been the happiest time of my life. We set a date for June, booked a beautiful venue overlooking Puget Sound, and started planning everything from the menu to the guest list. Natalie moved into my apartment since it made more sense than paying for two places when we were about to get married anyway. Everything felt like it was falling perfectly into place. Lucas came to visit about 2 months after we got engaged. He was between jobs again and asked if he could crash with us for a few weeks while he figured things out. I hesitated, but Natalie said it was fine. She thought it would be nice to get to know my brother better before we officially became family. Against my better judgment, I agreed. At first, everything seemed normal. Lucas slept on our couch, looked for work during the day, and stayed out of our way most evenings. But I started noticing small things. The way Lucas looked at Natalie when he thought I was not paying attention. How he always had an excuse to be in the kitchen when she was cooking dinner. The jokes between them that seemed to have context I was not part of. One evening, I came home from work to find them laughing together on the couch, sitting closer than seemed necessary. When I walked in, they jumped apart slightly. Lucas claimed he was just showing Natalie some funny videos on his phone. I told myself I was being paranoid and jealous for no reason. Lucas extended his stay from a few weeks to over a month. Every time I brought up him finding his own place, he had a reason why he needed just a little more time. He had a job interview coming up. He was waiting on a security deposit to be returned from his last apartment. Our parents were planning to visit soon and wanted to see him. Natalie always backed him up, saying it was not a big deal and that family should help each other. Then came the day that changed everything. I left work early because a project meeting got canceled. I texted Natalie to let her know I was coming home, but my phone died before I could see if she responded. When I walked into our apartment at 2:30 in the afternoon, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. Then I heard sounds coming from the bedroom. Sounds that made my stomach drop. I stood frozen in the living room for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 30 seconds. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave to pretend I had not heard anything. But I could not. I walked down the hallway to our bedroom and pushed open the door that was slightly ajar. Lucas and Natalie were in my bed. Our bed. The one we had picked out together at that furniture store, debating between firm and medium firmness. They were so absorbed in each other that they did not notice me standing in the doorway for several seconds. When Natalie finally looked up and saw me, she screamed and grabbed the sheets to cover herself. Lucas turned around, and the look on his face was not shame or regret. It was more like annoyance at being interrupted. I could not speak. My brain could not form words. I just stood there, staring at the two people I had trusted most in the world, caught in a betrayal so complete it did not feel real. Finally, I managed to say, "Get out, both of you, now." Lucas scrambled to find his clothes while Natalie wrapped herself in the sheet and started crying. She kept saying, "My name, Jonah, please let me explain. It is not what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. There was no other interpretation. I walked back to the living room and stood by the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline while they got dressed. I could hear Natalie still crying and Lucas muttering something I could not make out. When they finally emerged from the bedroom, Natalie tried to approach me. "Do not," I said, my voice cold and flat. "Do not come near me. Do not touch me. Just get your things and leave." Lucas left immediately, grabbing his backpack and jacket without a word. Natalie tried to stay, tried to talk to me, but I repeated myself until she finally understood I meant it. She packed a bag with shaking hands, crying the whole time. Before she left, she turned to me one more time. "It just happened, Jonah. We did not mean for this to happen. It was a mistake. The only mistake was me trusting either of you," I replied. After they left, I sat on the couch in complete silence for hours. I did not cry. I did not rage. I just sat there, replaying every moment of the past few months, seeing all the signs I had missed or ignored. The guilt I felt for being suspicious. The times I had dismissed my instincts because I thought I was being irrational. Around 8 o'clock that evening, my phone started ringing. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times before I finally answered. "Jonah, Lucas told us what happened," she said, her voice tight with tension. "We need to talk about this as a family." "There is nothing to talk about," I said. "Lucas slept with my fiancée. The wedding is off. That is all there is to it." "But honey, Lucas feels terrible. He called us, crying. He says it was just one time that they both made a horrible mistake. You cannot throw away your relationship with your brother over one mistake." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "One mistake, Mom, they were in my bed. In my apartment, while I was at work. This was not some drunken accident. This was a choice they both made." "I understand you are hurt," my father's voice cut in. He must have been on speakerphone. "But Lucas is your brother. Family has to forgive each other. That is what family means." "What about what Natalie did? Are you suggesting I marry someone who cheated on me with my own brother?" There was a pause. Then my mother said, "Well, maybe you two were not right for each other anyway. Maybe this happened for a reason. But you and Lucas, you are blood. That is forever." That conversation told me everything I needed to know about where my parents stood. Lucas had already gotten to them, framed himself as the remorseful younger brother who made a mistake, and they had bought it completely. My pain, my betrayal did not factor into their equation at all. Over the next few days, the calls and texts from family members did not stop. My aunt called to say that grudges only hurt the person holding them. My uncle sent a long text about the importance of family unity. Even my grandmother weighed in, reminding me that when she and my grandfather had problems, they worked through them, because that is what you do. Nobody seemed to understand or care that this was not a minor disagreement. This was a fundamental betrayal by the two people who should have been most loyal to me. And yet I was being painted as the unreasonable one for refusing to immediately forgive and forget. Lucas sent me several text messages apologizing. He said he never meant to hurt me, that he had developed feelings for Natalie he could not control, that he hoped someday I could understand. He never once took full responsibility. It was always couched in language that made it sound like this was something that happened to him rather than something he chose to do. Natalie called from different numbers after I blocked her main phone. She left voicemails begging me to talk to her, to let her explain, to give her a chance to make things right. She claimed she still loved me, that what happened with Lucas was just confusion and cold feet about the wedding. She promised it would never happen again if I would just forgive her. I did not respond to any of them. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects and staying at the office late into the night. My coworkers noticed I was not myself but respected my privacy enough not to pry. I told my boss I needed to take my name off the wedding registry in our company newsletter, and he asked no questions. 2 weeks after everything fell apart, my mother called with a new proposition. Your father and I think it would be good for all of us to sit down together and talk this through. We can do it at our house this weekend. Just family. Absolutely not, I said. Jonah, please. Lucas is devastated. He barely eats. He just stays in his old room at our house and cries. He needs his brother. He should have thought about that before he slept with my fiancée. Why are you being so stubborn, so unforgiving? This is not like you. The Jonah I raised would never turn his back on family like this. That statement cut deeper than anything Lucas or Natalie had done. My own mother was manipulating me, trying to guilt me into prioritizing her comfort over my own devastation. The Jonah she raised had always put family first, had always been the responsible one, had always made things easier for everyone else. But that Jonah had been taken advantage of one too many times. The Jonah you raised also never expected his family to defend his betrayer over him, I said quietly. But here we are. I hung up before she could respond. That evening, I made a decision. I contacted a realtor about selling my apartment. It held too many memories, too many reminders of what I had lost. More importantly, staying in Seattle meant staying within easy reach of my family's constant pressure to reconcile. A friend from college lived in Denver and had been trying to recruit me to his firm for years. I called him up and asked if the offer still stood. He said absolutely they would love to have me and I could start as soon as I was ready. Within 3 weeks, I had accepted the job, sold most of my furniture, and packed my remaining belongings. But before I left Seattle, my parents made one final attempt. They showed up at my apartment unannounced with Lucas in tow. My father knocked on the door while I was in the middle of packing boxes. When I opened it and saw all three of them standing there, I almost closed it again. Please, Jonah, just give us 10 minutes, my father said. That is all we are asking. Against my better judgment, I let them in. They stood awkwardly in my half-packed living room while I continued wrapping dishes in newspaper, not bothering to make them comfortable. My mother started the speech they had clearly rehearsed. We know you are hurting. We understand this is painful. But family is the most important thing in the world. Your father and I have worked through difficult times in our marriage. Families face challenges. What matters is how we respond to them. This is not a challenge, I interrupted. This is a betrayal. There is a difference. Lucas stepped forward, looking genuinely miserable. I know what I did was unforgivable, Jonah. I know that. But you are my brother. You are the only brother I will ever have. I cannot lose you over this. You should have thought about that before I said, not looking at him. It was not just me, Lucas continued. Natalie was part of this too. She pursued me just as much as I pursued her. We both made terrible choices. But she is gone now. Cannot we try to rebuild what we had? I finally looked up at him. You mean the relationship where I always came second? Where mom and dad excused everything you did while I was expected to be perfect? Where I worked hard for everything while you coasted on charm and excuses? That relationship, the room went silent. My parents exchanged uncomfortable looks. Lucas opened his mouth and then closed it again. I am moving to Denver, I announced. I start a new job in 2 weeks. I would appreciate it if all of you would respect my decision and leave me alone. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You are moving across the country because of this Jonah that is so extreme. No, Mom. What is extreme is finding your brother in bed with your fiancé and then having your entire family tell you to get over it for their convenience. My father tried a different approach. Son, I know we have not always been fair to you. I know we babied Lucas too much. But cutting us all off, moving away, that is not going to make you feel better. You will just be alone. I would rather be alone than surrounded by people who do not respect me, I said simply. They left shortly after that, my mother crying and my father looking angry. Lucas did not say anything else. He just looked at me with this wounded expression like he was the victim in all of this. It made me sick. The day before I left for Denver, I met with a woman named Grace, who had been Natalie's college roommate. Grace had reached out to me on social media saying she had information I needed to hear. We met at a coffee shop downtown, and she got straight to the point. I debated whether to tell you this, Grace said, stirring her latte nervously. But after hearing you were moving away, I felt like you deserved to know the truth. Natalie and Lucas, this was not the first time. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Grace pulled out her phone and showed me text message screenshots. They were from months ago, long before Lucas had moved into my apartment. Messages between Natalie and Lucas, flirty at first, then increasingly explicit. Discussions about meeting up when I was out of town for work. Plans to see each other at family gatherings when they thought nobody would notice. How did you get these? I asked, my voice hollow. Natalie used to vent to me about her relationship with you. She said you were stable and reliable but boring. She said Lucas was exciting and understood her in ways you did not. I tried to tell her she was making a huge mistake, that what she was doing was wrong, but she did not want to hear it. When I heard about the engagement getting called off, I figured it had something to do with Lucas. I am sorry I did not tell you sooner. I sat there staring at the messages, my hands shaking. This had been going on for months, maybe even over a year. Every family dinner, every holiday gathering, every time I had brought Natalie around my family, she had been carrying on with Lucas behind my back. And he had been doing the same, looking me in the eye and pretending to be my brother while betraying me at every opportunity. There is more, Grace said hesitantly. Natalie told me your parents knew something was going on. Not the details maybe, but they saw Lucas and Natalie together at your engagement party. They were outside on the patio and your mom caught them kissing. Natalie said your mom told them to be more careful, but she did not tell you because she did not want to ruin your happiness. Everything clicked into place. My mother's comments about Natalie maybe not being right for me. The way my parents never seemed surprised when I told them what happened. Their immediate defense of Lucas. They had known, or at least suspected, and they had chosen to protect Lucas instead of me. I thanked Grace for telling me, and left the coffee shop. I walked for hours through the city processing this new information. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had made my final decision. I drafted an email to my entire family. I know the truth about Lucas and Natalie. I know this had been going on for months before I caught them. I also know that Mom witnessed them together at my engagement party and chose to say nothing. I am writing this to let all of you know that I am done. I am not interested in reconciliation. I am not interested in family therapy or mediation or any other attempt to smooth this over. You all made your choices and I am making mine. Please do not contact me. I will reach out if and when I am ever ready to have a relationship again. Until then, consider me gone. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I blocked all of their numbers, blocked them on social media, and finished packing my boxes. The moving truck arrived the next morning. By noon, I was on the highway heading east Seattle, disappearing in my rearview mirror. Denver was a fresh start in every sense. My new job challenged me in ways my old one had not. The team was younger and more collaborative. My boss valued innovation and was not afraid to let me take risks on projects. Within 6 months, I was leading my own projects and earning more than I ever had in Seattle. I found an apartment in the Lodu neighborhood with exposed brick walls and big windows that let in tons of natural light. I furnished it slowly, carefully choosing pieces that felt like me, rather than trying to recreate what I had before. I joined a climbing gym and discovered I loved bouldering. I made friends with people who knew nothing about my past and liked me for who I was, now not who I had been. My family tried to contact me through other relatives at first. My cousin sent me a Facebook message saying everyone was worried about me. An old family friend called saying my parents missed me terribly. I responded politely but firmly that I was fine and asked them to respect my boundaries. Eventually, the messages stopped coming. About 8 months after I moved, I met someone. Her name was Diana, and she worked as an architect at a firm we were partnering with on a downtown development project. She was brilliant and funny, and had absolutely no patience for nonsense. On our third date, I told her the whole story about Lucas and Natalie and my family. I figured she deserved to know what she was getting into. Diana listened carefully, asked a few clarifying questions, and then said, "Your family sounds toxic. You made the right call, cutting them off." Her directness was refreshing. She did not try to play devil's advocate or suggest I was being too harsh. She just validated my experience and moved on. We kept seeing each other, and slowly, I learned what a healthy relationship looked like. Diana respected my boundaries. She communicated clearly about her needs and expectations. When we disagreed, we talked through it like adults, instead of one person manipulating the other. A year into our relationship, Diana and I moved in together. This time there were no red flags, no gut feelings I ignored, no signs that something was wrong. Everything felt solid and real. We talked about our future in concrete terms, making plans that we both actively worked toward instead of vague dreams that never materialized. One evening, about 2 years after I had moved to Denver, I received an email from an address I did not recognize. The subject line read, "From Mom." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. The email was long and rambling, talking about how much my parents missed me, how Lucas had finally gotten his life together and was engaged to someone new, how they wanted me to come home for the wedding. The audacity of it took my breath away. After everything that had happened, they wanted me to celebrate Lucas marrying someone else. They wanted me to pretend that we were a normal, functional family. They wanted me to come back and play my role as the responsible older brother who always made things easier for everyone else. I showed the email to Diana. She read it, shook her head, and said, "What are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said. "I am not going to respond. I am not going to explain myself again. I am just going to keep living my life." And that is exactly what I did. I deleted the email and went back to planning our weekend trip to Rocky Mountain National Park. My family sent a few more emails over the following months, which I also deleted without reading. They sent a wedding invitation to my work address somehow, which I threw in the trash. They were not going to get the reaction they wanted from me because I was done playing their games. 3 years after leaving Seattle, I proposed to Diana on top of a 14,000-foot peak we had hiked together. She said yes, and we planned a small wedding with just our closest friends. No family drama, no obligations to invite people who had hurt us, just a celebration of the life we had built together. My wedding was everything my almost wedding with Natalie was not. It was authentic, joyful, and surrounded by people who genuinely cared about both of us. When I stood at the altar and watched Diana walk down the aisle, I felt nothing but gratitude that my first engagement had fallen apart. If it had not, I never would have found this. Looking back now, I can see that what happened with Lucas and Natalie was not just about their betrayal. It was about my family showing me who they really were. They had always valued keeping the peace over doing what was right. They had always protected Lucas at my expense, because that was easier than holding him accountable. They had trained me from childhood to accept less than I deserved, to make myself smaller so Lucas could feel bigger. Cutting them off was not revenge, it was survival. It was recognizing that some relationships are toxic no matter how much you love the people in them. It was choosing my own mental health and future happiness over the comfort of familiar dysfunction. I learned that forgiveness is not always the answer. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away and never look back. Forgiveness requires the other person to acknowledge what they did wrong and make genuine amends. My family never did that. They just wanted me to pretend nothing happened so they could feel better about themselves. I learned that blood does not obligate you to accept abuse. Family is supposed to be the people who love you unconditionally, who support you through hard times, who celebrate your successes. If the people you share DNA with do not do those things, then they are just strangers you happen to be related to. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing. Getting cheated on and betrayed by everyone I trusted forced me to rebuild my life from scratch. It forced me to examine what I really wanted, instead of just following the path I thought I was supposed to follow. It led me to Denver, to my career, to Diana, to a life that is fully mine. Diana and I have been married for 2 years now. We bought a house in the suburbs with a yard for the dog we adopted. We host game nights with friends and take long road trips exploring the western states. We talk about starting a family someday, about the kind of parents we want to be, and the kind of environment we want to create for our kids. I have not spoken to my parents, Lucas, or anyone from my immediate family in over 5 years now. Sometimes I wonder what they are doing, if Lucas is happy in his marriage, if my parents ever understood why I left. But those moments of curiosity pass quickly. I have built a life that does not include them, and I am genuinely happy. If someone had told me 5 years ago that I would cut off my entire family and move across the country, I would have said that was impossible. I would have said family is too important, that you have to work through problems no matter how hard they are. But now I know better. Sometimes working through problems means removing yourself from a situation that will never get better. My story does not have a neat, tidy ending where everyone reconciles and learns valuable lessons. Real life is messier than that. Sometimes people do not change. Sometimes relationships cannot be repaired. Sometimes the only way forward is to leave the past behind and build something new. I chose myself. I chose my dignity. I chose a future where I am respected and valued, and I have never regretted that choice for a single moment. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut off family members who refuse to respect your boundaries? Have you been betrayed by people you trusted and then pressured to forgive them before you were ready? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is struggling with a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and choosing yourself. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to walk away from toxic relationships, even when those relationships are with family. Thank you for listening to my journey. I hope it reminds you that you deserve to be treated with respect and loyalty, and that you are never wrong for demanding that from the people in your life. Take care of yourselves, protect your peace, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. Until next time.